Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another of our podcasts. Let's air it out. Today's topic: Unlocking Motivation, a guide to students and educators. Help me welcome our panelists. With us this afternoon are Dr. Dasana Shand, Dr. Kemati Morgan, a member of our PTA at the St. Hilda's High School, Mrs. Tanya Crosdale, and a teacher from the St. Hilda's High School, Miss Tracy Ann Clark. Today, we want to explore the topic motivation. What is it? How do we motivate our students? And how do we recognize when they're unmotivated? According to verywellmind.com, the term motivation describes why a person does something. We'd like to invite Miss Tracy Ann Clark at this time to tell us about her experience, her personal experience about motivating her students in her class.
Hi, good evening, panel, and also to Miss Velda. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. Now, as you know, I am a literature teacher, and I must say some of my students find literature to be very disinteresting. I'm a teacher who's determined to inspire them. And so I've decided to employ various strategies to make the class more engaging. Now, I have decided also to make learning relevant. And what do I do in this? I relate literature to personal experiences. Another thing that the school and I are working towards is to create an interactive book club. Why we're doing this is to offer the students choices. This is to foster a sense of community and make reading more enjoyable for the students. Another way of employing these students to be more interested in literature is to do a creative project. Why are we doing this? It is to establish a positive learning environment as creative projects that will allow the students to express their understanding of literature in various ways. Now, these are just a few of the strategies that we have employed, but there are quite a few more that could have been used in a situation like this, Mrs. Lindo.
Thank you for sharing your strategies with us, Ms. Clark. We understand, Mrs. At this time, we'd like to ask Dr. Shan to share with us, from a psychological perspective, what really is motivation and how it works.
Good afternoon, panelists, and thank you for having me. Well, according to Britannica.com, motivation is forces acting either on or within a person to initiate behavior. Now, there are two types of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, according to Fabian J. in a 2023 studies, is when someone feels motivated to do something to gain a reward or to avoid a particular punishment. Fabian J also goes on to elaborate. Within the school environment, there are certain factors that are extrinsically motivating to students. The school environment, is it pleasant? Is the school community tidy? Is the teacher caring and agreeable? This in itself is conducive to learning. Is it an excellent environment that gives excellent student output? What about the relationship with teacher? Good student-teacher relationship are conducive to learning, and this is also important to the student. Parents cannot overemphasize the importance of parents' participation within the student's life. Research have shown that parents who are participating in their students' life, the student has greater output. Such students are always A students and they always know what is happening. Parents must make time to spend with their true students their children, sorry, in order to motivate the children. And the home environment is another external environment, external factor. Is the home from where the child comes, is it happy? Children from unhappy homes are just poorly in school, and it affects their academic performance. So we're moving quickly into intrinsic motivation, and this is internal. It's according to Cherry Kay, 2003. It's behavior engaging in because it is personally rewarding. It's not for something from the outside, not for external reward. These are alignment with personal values. When education activities align with a student personal value and beliefs, motivation is likely to be higher. Personal interest. Students who are motivated when they find a subject personally interested, they'll enjoy it more and they'll be more motivated. And when the performance goals are intertwined with it, some students are motivated in order to accomplish the desired outputs in terms of competition in the class. So when there's stiff competition in the class, students will be motivated to accomplish their utmost. So these are just a few of the formulas for intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Of course, there are more, but I'm hopeful that these are sufficient to guide us this evening.
Thank you for sharing with us, Dr. Shand. I'd like to now hear from Mrs. Crossdale. She has a daughter who attends the St. Hilda's High School and appears to be demotivated. Mrs. Crossdale, please share with us what's happening with your daughter.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, Mrs. Anderson Lindo. Now, what I've observed with my daughter is that she lost confidence. Now, this is a student who, in the previous grade, was a top performer. Now she gets to this grade and she has lost confidence. She has been complaining that whenever she asks, she doesn't understand the work and asks for help in the class, the teacher doesn't show any interest at all. And now she's crying. She doesn't want to go to school. It's hard for us to get her out the bed in the morning just to get her prepared for school. So we recognize that she lacked courage and she's timid.
Mrs. Crossdale, we're so sorry to hear what's happening with your daughter. I'll invite Dr. Morgan at this time to share with us some strategies to assist unmotivated students.
So thank you for having me on this podcast, Miss Anderson Lindo and Miss Crossdale. Really sorry to hear about what is happening to your daughter. So in order to understand why your daughter may lack motivation, it is the responsibility of the teacher to identify and to understand the student completely. The teacher should focus on identifying the student's learning preferences and interests. So it's important that the teacher tries to have an understanding what your daughter's learning preference may be. So by appealing to your daughter's demotivation, we can tailor a learning plan that is going to interest the student based off her interest. So this will create a positive environment, and then we can ensure that as much learning takes place. According to an article that was published by Georgia Highlands College, there are some other strategies that I want to mention. So we can set clear goals and set clear and achievable goals rather for your daughter. And we want to encourage autonomy, and we want to encourage her to try to reach these goals on her own. So you allow the child to work out their own questions, to set their own schedule, and see if that will improve. Now, after some time, what we're going to do is to praise her effort. And what we're going to realize over time is that we're going to see the student, your child, her perseverance and her persistence will increase. So I really hope that you find these strategies to be very useful, and that over the time we can see an increase in motivation for your daughter. So over to you, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Thank you, panelists. I'm sure that the tips and the strategies that you've shared today will help other parents and other teachers and other students who may be demotivated. But let us look at some points, some takeaway points. So we defined motivation as something that allows us to do something. We also discussed that motivation can be both internal or external, being intrinsic or extrinsic. We also agreed that in order for motivation to take place, there needs to be a balance, both at home and at school. There needs to be positive environment for learning, both at home and at school. We also spoke about the fact that teachers should try to meet students where they are, gain the students' interest into the lesson, and encourage and praise students for small wins. We want to thank you today for joining our podcast once again and for sharing in this discussion with us. Until next time, we'll see you again on another Let's Air It Out.